Hello and welcome to your astrological vibrations for Sunday, October 23rd, 2022 by Gaia Blooming. I am Mimi and our energy mantra for today is I lean into deeper intimacy with me. And today we have the Sun and Venus moving into Scorpio. This is happening relatively early. Venus will move into Scorpio at 12:52 a.m. Pacific time, and the Sun will move into Scorpio at 3:36 a.m. Pacific time. So we're already moving away from this exact conjunction, and yet we will have both these energies, the Sun and Venus, at 0 degrees for a large part of the day. And anytime we have 0-degree energy, it can feel a little wonk, especially Venus. I feel like Venus lends so much grace, and I still think that that grace will be there, being that the Sun is lighting up that Venusian energy, and yet give yourself a lot of space in this, because this is a major transition, major transformation, major shift, with both of those planets moving to 0-degree Scorpio. And as we build to this eclipse, there are a lot of energies flying. It's also interesting what we have going on actually in the astro for today, which I want to dig into already, but let's dig into the sign of Scorpio. So the sign of Scorpio, most people know is a fairly intense sign. It is a sign of transformation. It is ruled in part by Phoenix energy. It combines the powers of Mars and Pluto. So Scorpio has a lot of dynamic energy. I always feel like Scorpio is a big part of our personal alchemizing or alchemy process, I guess is the right word, practice. Scorpio can take us to the bare bottoms, the brass tacks, the lowest of the low within ourselves. I've said this before, but you know, when you're like, I have to go to the basement and I want somebody to hold my hand, Scorpio's like, I'll do it. I am not afraid. And part of that reason is because Scorpio is always ready to protect. Scorpio energy can be reactive. And sometimes we need that protection and sometimes we don't, right? So in this energy, we want to be really aware of that reaction. That's part of that Mars energy, to spring into protection for ourselves. Our theme for Scorpio is intimacy and vulnerability. And leading off or coming off of this harmony process that we've been working on with the Sun and Venus in Libra, this is a really great time to go beyond the surface, or, you know, I can't grab what the word is, but beyond the surface things of life, and really dig into our emotions, our feelings, traumas, wounds, pains, any of that is under the surface, and be intimate with ourselves, be vulnerable within ourselves. It is from being intimate and vulnerable within ourselves and looking at these places, tending to these places, holding space for these places, that we can then do that with others and become more intimate and vulnerable with others. I don't know if you just heard the little Scorpio moon in the background. Agree to that. But Luce was like, wow. So this is this call during, this season of Scorpio for the next 30 days is to deepen our personal intimacy and vulnerability with ourselves. Now again, this can bring quite tender places more to the surface. And so we may find ourselves more reactive, more ready to protect ourselves from that. And even that is something that we can dig deeper into. One of the themes of the eclipse incoming is beauty in the breakdown. And the fact that breaking down, being broken, is a part of life that we all go through at least one time, if not more, usually more. And it's so important. There's that quote that says, we're all broken, that's how the light gets in. And Scorpio is where we hold space and tend to those broken parts and see what kind of alchemy and integration we have in that place. Scorpio rules some of the most tender parts of ourselves. It does rule like the sex organs and the wombish area, wombish or hara. So there's a lot of power, but there's also a lot of, again, tending to do to those places within ourselves. So Scorpio can help take us there. With Venus and Scorpio, it's so interesting to see what various people have to say about Venus and Scorpio. I have Venus and Scorpio. Venus and Scorpio can get protective of its heart, can get jealous. It can be the femme fatale energy. Venus and Scorpio has a very deep desire that it is magnetizing for itself. So with Venus in Scorpio for about, the next month, a little bit less, but for this time, being very aware about your desires and how you are magnetizing that is a very important thing to look at, especially as we are just entering with the sun magnetizing the magnetizing energy, right? Like the sun is just adding to that. So being very aware of that. Venus in Scorpio takes its pleasure very seriously. We want to be aware of the dark side. We want to be aware of any possessiveness, knowing that everything on this planet is impermanent and truly beyond our soul. I don't know that we actually possess anything. And do we possess our soul, or does our soul possess us? I'm not really sure how that goes. So that's an interesting energy that we will be digging deep into as well. But fortunately, this Venus energy is also holding a lot of grace for us as we dance into the beginning of this eclipse season. For today, astro-wise, we are looking at the Sun and Venus in and in conjunct with Jupiter at 0 degrees Aries. So an in conjunct is interesting. That's where we're not quite seeing eye to eye. We don't know how to work together. Now this is interesting because song I'm hearing, Jupiter and Aries, 0 degrees. What I am is what I am. You what you are, or what? Edie Brickell, singing that. And I think that's part or how we're kicking off this intimacy vulnerability process, is learning to accept all of who we are. I think that's one of the most vulnerable things on this planet, is to allow ourselves to fully let our light shine, right? And part of letting our light shine is being fully aware of our darkness and doing whatever work around our darkness, our shadow, our pain, our trauma that needs to be done, so we can let that light shine, so we can be intimate with the world in regards to shining our light. This is not an easy process, because from the time we're very little, we're a lot of times shot down, like, don't do that, don't be that, around who we really are. So we learn to put a cloak on that light. And so part of this intimacy vulnerability process is starting to figure out who we are, and in this process, lean into those vulnerable pieces, the pieces that you haven't shared. And even if you're not ready to share them with others, sharing them, acknowledging them, owning them within yourself is a big part of this process. Now, Jupiter is retrograde and will be retrograding back into Pisces soon. And when we do that, it's a whole other ball game of what we're going to be digging into. But with Jupiter at this 0, Sun and Venus at 0, this combination is so alchemizing. The 0 degree is about transformation. So there's much transformation and empowerment in this. But if you've ever been through any transformation empowerment processes, they don't necessarily come easy. So do keep that in mind. I think I'm going to leave that here minus cards. The top of the cards, this jumped out, is integration. And this is basically what we're doing through this Scorpio season, is integrating these pieces of ourselves. Whether it's a wound that's ready to be tended to and healed, or parts of our shadow that we're willing to finally look at, or, darkness within ourselves. And when I say darkness, it doesn't mean it's bad. So often we associate bad with darkness, but if you are a moon lover like me, you know that the moon shines best in the darkness. So it's not necessarily darkness as in evil, but it's these hidden parts of ourselves that shame or fear is a big topic of Scorpio, shame or fear have entered into. I will say that a positive part of Scorpio that we can utilize is boundaries, and sometimes we do need to have these boundaries within ourselves for our personal intimacy process and for personal vulnerability. Sometimes we need to put them out in the world, but sometimes we also need to realize where we are holding boundaries and where we may need to shift that energy. So consciousness is very necessary, awareness in this unfolding of our integration. And how do we do that? Be here now. What is showing up is the thing. And if nothing's showing up, then that's okay. Be here now. Be still. If something's not showing up, I promise you, it's just right around the corner. Trust, another card. Trusting. You know, we learn this process of balance to recognize, like, okay, I can go to the deep places and I can also resurface myself. So it's trusting yourself to be able to maintain that balance. The final card is control in reverse. And I think it is in control that we do hide away a lot of those pieces of ourselves. So it's recognizing where control came from the outside, and you may have integrated that or personified that, or projections of that have come along and that you've taken them on. Where have you controlled away important parts of yourselves that it's now time to become intimate and vulnerable with? So I'm leaving that there for today. You can book a reading with me. Email me, mimiclark@gmail.com. Besides that, the better it gets, the better it gets. There's more than enough love in the world for you. You have the power, and honor your values. Namaste.